All right, for the record, please state your full name, date of birth, and city and state in which you live.
William Perrillo, May 19th, 1969, and I'm from Stratford, Connecticut.
Okay, what branch of service were you in?
I was in the United States Marine Corps Reserve.
And what was your highest rank?
I was a Lance Corporal, which is a pay grade of E3.
And in what general location did you serve?
I did my basic training in Parris Island, South Carolina. I continued my training in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. My reserve unit was in New Haven, Connecticut, and then I've done our regular field training in California on several occasions, Massachusetts.
Okay, where were you living at the time you enlisted?
Stratford with my parents, just out of high school.
Okay. Do you recall the date?
That I enlisted?
Yes.
I enlisted at 17 years old, where I had to get my mother's signature, probably halfway through my senior year at Stratford High in '87. I had a ship out date. I went through the buddy system with Patrick Gallagher, and we had a ship out date for the middle of August. The procedure is you go to Massachusetts for one last physical before you're shipped to your training facility. And I had a planter's wart on my foot. I was on the swim team in high school, and just a tiny little planter's wart they picked up on. So I wasn't able to leave at that time. Pat went without me. And then after I fixed that condition, I left in November 15th to Parris Island of 1987.
Why did you enlist?
I felt at the time it was the best option for me. When I was in high school, I don't think I was mature enough for college, or my grades, my time management wasn't good. I had a strong influence from my family that were all in the military, and I saw that joining the Marine Corps, which I was on the understanding was one of the hardest branches to accomplish, I looked at as a challenge. I felt I had not challenged myself in high school, and I thought the military would have been a good option to prove something.
Okay, because my next question was going to be, why did you pick the Marines, but you answered that. Tell me about your first days in the service.
So the recruiters try to do a good job of preparing you for a crazy time. At that time, I was in touch with Pat Gallagher, because he had come out of boot camp, and some of my friends that also recruited me that's been in the Marine Corps. They try to prepare you of what happens in Parris Island, but there is really no preparing for it. What they do is you fly from Massachusetts to Savannah, Georgia in the overnight, and so you're very disoriented. So then you take a bus ride, and you arrive about 3 or 4 in the morning to the training facility. And from the get-go, it's about chaos and discipline. It's just to disorient you so that they can structure you when you come back. So the first few days were very confusing, frightening, and challenging.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about your boot camp experience. That was the first few days, but what happened as you got into your training?
So the first week they call it receiving, and that's when they cut your hair and they issue your boots and your uniforms and they shave you, and you haven't been picked up to a platoon yet. And so there's not a lot of training going on, a lot of unknown. And within about 4 or 5 days, you are assigned to a platoon where your training begins. It's tough. They have drill instructors that are, even back then, were physical, but certainly verbal. And they explained what the intentions of the training was going to be over the next 3 months and the goals they hope to accomplish, and what they expected you pushing yourself beyond what you think you could push yourself.
Well, you mentioned, you just briefly touched upon it, but do you remember your instructors?
I remember one instructor, Sergeant Snow. I mean, this is 35 plus years ago. I remember that we had a drill instructor we were his first platoon. So Normally, platoons have 3 drill instructors and a senior drill instructor. We happen to have 4 because one was under training and one was going to retire, so we overlapped. I should remember their names. I don't. It was chaotic.
How did you get through it?
Following orders. So I think I've come from a great home and a great family, so I feel that helped me a lot. I had a lot of support, and I had a good upbringing. In high school, I played soccer. I was in the marching band, and I was on the swim team. And those are some of the biggest challenges in boot camp that some people struggle with. Not everybody can swim. I was able to run and keep up with the pack, and I knew how to march, which surprisingly a lot of people don't know how to march when they learn. So, and the other thing is, I was tiny. I was a little underdeveloped, but alphabetically, my name's like in the middle of the alphabet, and I kind of was able just to stay under the radar and do what I had to do.
Okay, after boot camp, where did you go?
From there, I went to, so my job was a motor transport unit. We were what they consider the first echelon mechanic. Basically, you're the Jiffy Lube of the fleet of vehicles in the military. So I went to an abbreviated mechanic school for about 7 months in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
Okay. You mentioned what your assignment was there. Any citations or awards during your time?
Well, I was during the peacetime. So 1987, there wasn't any conflict going on. So I was never deployed. I was never into a foreign war situation. I received the Good Conduct Award. I went to a big battalion operation. It was called Weather Training in Bridgeport, California, up in the Sierra Nevada mountains, and I was recognized by the general for accelerating during this operation of a couple thousand Marines. But they called it the SMAC Award. What had happened was I ended up becoming snow buddies with a general, and I made his chicken soup and hot cocoa, and somehow he awarded me the general award.
How did you stay in touch with your family during this time?
Probably a lot different than now. I don't know what's happening in boot camp now, but when you arrive to boot camp, within 48 hours, you send a form letter, kind of generic, that you're alive, you're healthy, you get 5 hours sleep, 3 meals a day. And then within 2 or 3 days, you're allowed to make a long-distance phone call to call home, and you're allowed 2 minutes, hoping that someone picked up on the other line. Everything was snail mail. I would remember friends, yourself, sending me letters, and it would take 4 or 5 days to get to me. In boot camp, maybe once a week we'd have mail call, and then we'd have a limited amount of time to read our mail. And I was very fortunate to get a lot of mail, and then we have about limited time to respond to the mail. And it was a staggered amount of time because of, as I received letters from you and other friends, what I'm missing, and everybody's having a good time, I would explain what I was going through. And by the time that got back to friends and family, it's already 2 weeks and time had passed. So there was no really current communicating, current time. It was a 2-week lag.
What was the food like?
I don't remember it being good or bad. I think probably the whole 3 months I was in Paris Island, I was totally alert and scared, and you eat for survival. There's no furniture. You don't sit down. You either are asleep or you're up for 18 hours. And if you had a chance to sit and eat, it was 20 minutes, 15 minutes to eat a meal, and there was no one being picky. You just ate to eat. There was no snacks. That was it, 3 meals, and that's it.
Boom, in and out, right?
Boom, yeah.
Was there something special you did for good luck when you were there?
Well, I was active with St. Mark's Church growing up, and one of the positions that comes up in all branches, they have a lay reader. So each religion would have a designated person that reads a prayer at night before you'd go to bed, and I was with the Catholic one, so I was selected for that. So that kept my faith and my focus, and it also allowed me on Sundays to participate in church and get away from the chaos where eventually in boot camp you you finally realize 3/4 of the way through that it's a necessary crazy day, but you were able to anticipate it. And when I was able to go to church and get some sense of reality outside of boot camp, it helped me realize, it stabilized me a little bit on that little bit of time.
Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events when you were at boot camp?
I think when the fear factor comes into the reality that you're in intense training, the wittiest, smartest, brilliant people in the world are drill instructors, Marine Corps drill instructors, to my experience. And when you're not in trouble, and I'm very lucky that I really was never on the radar, some of the things when the drill instructor would dog a recruit was sometimes funny. Their remarks were funny, necessary but funny.
What was homecoming like for you?
Well, because I had the delayed entry from not leaving in August, I have a big family. We celebrate all the holidays. My father thinks he's Santa Claus. So I came home in February, and my parents, we had an artificial Christmas tree, but they had kept it up for me throughout for missing the holidays. I was there for Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, Valentine's Day. I came home a week, the last week of February, I think. So it was nice that my friends and family celebrated Christmas with me when I came home. I was home for 10 days before I went out to the training, and I think I spent all 10 days with friends and hanging out.
What did you do when you got out and, in the immediate days and weeks after? What was your plan?
So at the time when I got done with my training, I checked into my reserve unit. I was probably 18 or 19 still, and I really started to feel from what was instilled into me in boot camp that I could do whatever I wanted, and I wanted a job in law enforcement. I wasn't old enough yet, but it gave me the discipline. One thing that Parris Island has given me is the feeling that you can't accomplish anything, because if you survive Parris Island, nothing else matches to that. So it took away the intimidation factor of job interviews, promotional interviews. I went into law enforcement and was promoted to where I wanted to be. And that all comes back to the foundation that I learned and became part of me from Parris Island.
Did you make any really close friendships in the service, and do you continue with those relationships?
From the people I served with, no. Well, yes, I went on to the reserve unit in New Haven, and as I became a police officer, I realized that there was dozens of police officers in the area, and I went into narcotics for the state police task force, and I worked with fellow Marines that I did serve with in New Haven that were state troopers. But more importantly, the bond that Marines have, that veterans have, but especially the Marine Corps, I feel that it's an unconditional, unquestionable friendship. So Marines that I didn't serve with, especially during Veterans Day and the Marine Corps birthday, which is celebrated in the Marine Corps, of all ages. I've run into kids 21 years old in a bar and 81 years old, and we have that camaraderie.
So that brotherhood.
That's that brother, the fraternity.
How did your military experience influence your thinking about about war or military in general?
I went in, I understood my parents were nervous because their generation only understood the military was going to answer the call and people will lose their life. I didn't have that concern in 1987, and our country and our history wasn't involved in anything, so that wasn't really over my head. Since then, I really admire people that are joining the military during a 22-year war time that we've been involved in. I want to say when I was 18, I would have still signed up. I never had that over my head because it was a peacetime. I served from 87 to 1991, and Desert Storm was just starting. My reserve unit was deployed, but at the same time, the country was unsure of homeland security issues, so police officers were kind of exempt of deploying because they didn't know the resources here at the time. But I am confident that my experience in boot camp, the United States military would be ready for any conflict and accomplish anything they need to do, any time in American history.
How did your service or experience affect your life?
I think it's everything. I don't know the magic behind a 3-month tour of Paris Island, but there's not a day that goes by that I'm reminded that I'm a Marine, or, like I mentioned earlier, any challenge in front of me, I would rest my oaths on the fact that I accomplished more than most challenges in the everyday civilian life, so nothing intimidated me. It helped me a lot as a patrolman. I recognized veterans that may be suffering from problems of all different conflicts, and it was a great icebreaker when I would be involved with someone on a call and realize that their family member, you may stop a car and you could see a bumper sticker, "My son's in the Navy," or so. It's a great icebreaker to talk to people, and it's a great communication skill. But there's not a day. It means everything to me. There's no way I would have been where I am today if I didn't have the discipline I've gotten. And it's not lack of my family. I wasn't mature enough at the time, and I needed that.
Is there any last thing you'd like to add?
I think the military is a great option for everybody. It's not for everybody, but it's an option for everybody. I think that if someone's interested in going, they should really know that there is an obligation, and it's not easy, and that's what makes it great. I talk to young people that may not be ready for college. The reserves are a good option. There's a lot of benefits. It pays for your college, and you make your commitment to your country, and you get the benefits of that. But also, a lot of people don't see maximize what you can get out of the military. As I became a cop, we make money working road jobs, and you meet guys that work for utility companies driving backhoes. And there's jobs like that in the military that can give you, if you go in and you are an infantryman or you're involved in artillery or weapons, there's limited jobs for you when you come back to the civilian world. But there's millions of jobs that the military offers that would give you a huge advantage, maybe more than some colleges if you're not ready for college. There's cooks, there's administrators, there's lawyers, there's construction equipment operators. When you look at jobs that say you need experience before you can be hired to go work for a utility company, you'll spend hundreds of thousands of hours working machines in the military. You'd be firemen, policemen, MPs. It's their own existence. So every job that it takes, there's that many jobs offered that will carry into your civilian world and catapult you ahead.
Give you an advantage.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank you for your service, and thank you for the interview.